Welcome to Volume 11 Rock Talk Podcast, brought to you by Volume 11 Music. Your hosts, Rich Hoffa, Rick Lawhorn, and Mark Dunn. Rock Talk, Volume 11 Music.
Hey, it's the guys here at Volume 11 Music in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and this is Rock Talk. I'm Rich Hoffa.
Rick Lawhorn.
Mark
Dunn. Sounds like the guy in the intro a little bit.
Maybe a little bit. Yeah, they went to the same broadcasting school.
It
Volume 11.
Yeah, and if you like the music, this is this guy. It's Mark playing a little guitar.
That's right. That's drop D for E.
Top Gear album. Yeah, a great album.
Good stuff.
Great album. Good stuff.
Thank you.
So this
Top
week,
Gear.
That's right. Mark Dunn with Mark Dunn and Mark Dunn Music. So this week we're going to talk about guitar mods and things. I do all the guitar repairs and guitar mods here at Volume 11 Music. So a lot of things that I run into, and good mods, bad mods, and stuff that's been kind of over the top. But I'll let you guys talk about some of the good mods, and I'll talk about some of the things that I wouldn't.
I'm sure
do.
Mark will probably agree with me full-heartedly, I would think, on this. So who was the person that really, I think, in my opinion, really kick-started the whole mod thing? I'm going to go back to Eddie Van Halen.
Sure.
Taking a Strat body, and what did Strats have back in the 60s? They were mainly single-coil pickups, which have a great sound for a lot of things, but when you're running high-gain, high-energy rock, like what early Van Halen was definitely doing, the humbucking pickup is definitely the way to go. And so Eddie, I think, was the player who really put it on the map, taking that Strat body and putting a humbucker, and it really kick-started an entire generation of players that I want a Strat or a Strat-style guitar, and I want to put a good humbucking pickup in that and crank it through a loud Marshall that goes to 11.
Right.
Right.
You know what? On an interesting note, the heralded pickup in the Frankenstein is broken.
Broken. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Tom Anderson, Eddie took that guitar to Tom to retire it, and said, "Can you just make it right?" So you'll notice that the bridge doesn't sit on the quarter anymore.
Okay.
Eddie Van Halen fans know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's because the bridge was over a half a centimeter off.
Honestly, never knew that.
And then they take the pickup out to put the meter on it to find out what the holy grail of tone is.
Right.
And it showed as it was open. It was broken. And so they thought they had broken.
Now that was the old PAF pickup.
That's the
PAF, right?
They thought they had broken the pickup by merely removing it. So
the holy grail.
They put it back in, and they're just like, I don't know what we're going to tell Eddie. Put it back in. They wire it back up, and they plug it in, and it works.
Wow.
So that pickup is a broken pickup.
Okay.
So don't break your humbucker.
Yeah. Don't.
But that's a true story.
Okay. But that would definitely be something as far as mods, And so, Rich, you get a lot of that here, right? So people bringing in, like, we need new pickups in the guitar.
Yeah, we do a lot of that stuff. I mean, we carry all the big major pickup brands. Seymour Duncan. We got DiMarzio. We've got Fralin pickups out of Richmond, which are absolutely fantastic. We carry EMG, and we just started doing. We got Rio Grande, Rio Grande on the way as well. That's a lot of times the most thing that players will do is put pickups in, and but some of the stuff is it's not you just don't drop it in. A lot of these guitars, the manufacturers are going to all these quick disconnects and things like that. Gibson's famous for it. They put them in the Epiphones, and a regular pickup not going to just plug in there. You got to cut connectors off, try to figure out what wire goes where, because they don't use the same color codings and things like that. But of course, with setups and stuff like that and fret leveling, we do all that as well. But a couple of things that ran into. I had a gentleman bring. He's a great customer, but he had a custom guitar, and this thing, it was expensive. It was a nice guitar. Unfortunately, it wasn't built properly. It was a half inch too short. or too long actually.
On the neck, on the scale.
Yeah, the scale of it was a half inch too long, so I couldn't get it to intonate right. And so the only way to do it's to get a router out and start routering and to slide the neck back far enough to get the intonation right on the guitar. Wow. But I recently did it was kind of interesting too. I did an 8 string with fan frets and
fan.
Yeah, exactly, fan frets, and the customer wanted to have these different pickups in there, so he ordered I think he ordered Seymour Duncan pickups, but the problems were they were staggered and the pickups wouldn't fit, and so exactly, yeah. Good representation.
I'm here to help.
But and the bad part was too is the guitar didn't have it doesn't have a pick guard, so the pickups are there
into the
exposed and all that. Yeah. And so I talked to my rep and he said, well, they don't do the stagger just because the manufacturers and the stagger pickups don't. They angle the pickups at all different angles, so they don't know what to stagger them, so they don't do it. And so I had to get the router out, or not the router, but the Dremel, and make the holes bigger and all that stuff. And the guitar turned out fantastic, but it's just when you're doing mods, keep in mind you might have to. Yeah, you might have to grind something, or
might not be pretty,
or chisel in the case of Eddie.
I've seen that too. I've seen the old pictures of Eddie chiseled guitars and all that, but. One of the things I'll say, is one thing when you're doing modifications is, if you're doing it for yourself, that's great. Have at it. We do all kinds of modifications with putting graphite nuts on different tuning machines, different bridges, different pickups, different pots, all this type of stuff. But always keep in mind the value is only there for you. These modifications don't make the guitar worth anymore, especially if you take a couple $100 guitar and you hot rod it and you put $500 or $600 into
worth
it.
$2,000
pickups. Well, and I always tell people that ahead of time. So look, I want to sell you all the stuff. I want to do all the labor and stuff, but keep in mind, it doesn't turn it into an $800 guitar. It's still a couple $100 guitar. I don't care what you put in it. And I watched a video on YouTube a few weeks ago. A guy did all these hop ups, and I'm sure it sounded great, it played good, and all that stuff. But he takes it to a store, retailer, and he's upset because they're not going to give him any more than. Yeah. But you got to find that person that wants all that stuff and sees the value that you have, and the store doesn't see it that way. And, so before you go loading a ton of money into a guitar that's still a $200 guitar, it's one thing doing, and in the other turn too is I've seen players, somebody buys a $5,000 guitar and does the same thing to it, and I think at that point, wouldn't you want to keep it stock?
If it's
high end. Do you modify your stuff?
Not typically. When other than pick guards with pickups.
Yeah.
I'm not taking chisels to anything.
Right. Well,
it's. I have a couple that I could experiment on and ding without worrying about it. But I try and keep the higher end stuff intact. It's bad enough that I play them all the time.
Right. Yeah. But I think for me, is like buying guitars. It's when I was shopping for stuff online and trying to find the deal and whatever, if it said it's modified, I ran away from it because there's good modifications, there's bad modifications, and I've seen a lot of.
And there's good modifications done poorly.
Stuff. Well, that's what I'm talking about. A lot of stuff that's been. Wow, you open it up and you're like, wow, who did this? And you gotta really.
Well, I remember back in the '80s, a lot of guys I knew personally that had the Strats with the regular Fender style tremolos. Of course, when the Floyd Rose thing really took off, everybody was wanting Floyd Rose, and there were some real hatchet jobs out there for some guitars that I personally knew. That is like, don't try this at home. It was pretty bad.
To the Floyd Rose, I have a mod suggestion, and for students that may not know this, or for players that may not know this, then I also have another mod idea that's kind of cool that works. If you have a guitar that has a floating tremolo, be it a locking tremolo or like a PRS that has a Vance style tremolo, but it's not mounted to the wood. And you want to go in between tunings, or you want to play in drop tunings, or like Motley Crue tuning, which is a whole step down drop C.
Yep.
Then you either want to have a guitar that's set up for that all the time, which is cool, and we happen to sell guitars here, so you can facilitate that need. But if you have one that has a tremolo and you're going to want to go in between different tunings for the drop to heavier stuff, you're going to want to block the tremolo off. And so where the tremolo, if this is the bridge on the top of the guitar doing that's the bridge. Underneath it is a block where the strings go through. So you're going to want to make it so that block can't go back in the opposite direction. So that way when you loosen the strings, the tremolo stays exact. It'll still go down when you press it, but it won't go back and cause those. So, because I've run into some students that wanted to play something, from Motley Crue or Slipknot or something, and it's just a pretty wonky tuning, and it just isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So just that's not necessarily a mod in the sense of changing the overall guitar.
Right.
It's a little, a chalk, if you will, a little piece of wood to just, glue in there with a little bead of glue, and it'll keep the tremolo still. The other idea with pickups that I had on a guitar, or I have on a couple of my guitars, is when you have a humbucker and you have the two singles, you know how you can obviously tap the humbucker.
Right.
Okay, so when you tap a humbucking pickup, you're essentially canceling one of the magnets, and it sends it to a short. And you can do it with a switch, or you can do it with a push-pull or a push-push on volume pot or tone pot. You can even make it one of the settings on a 5-way. So, but when you tap it and you short one of the magnets out, in my opinion, it completely changes what the pickup does and how it sounds.
Right.
So it's kind of real world comparative to if you're driving and you say, you know what, I want 3 pistons instead of 6.
Right.
Your car's not going to drive the same.
Right.
So it's this, that kind of thing. It sounds completely different. So I came up with an idea that's not original, because we found a diagram for it.
Okay.
On Seymour Duncan, I think they have every conceivable diagram
Ever,
for
right? Yeah.
And so we had to go, and it's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot
I'm
of
sure,
things.
I'm sure.
But with the humbucker, instead of what I did is I got a concentric pot, meaning it's 2 pots. Okay, so there's one on the outside, the bottom, and another one in the middle, and they have 2 different functions. But it was a space saver. But one of those, instead of tapping the humbucker, is a volume knob for just the coil, for one coil.
Okay.
So I'm able to take it down to single coil without shorting the magnet.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
cool.
and
That's
so
really cool.
and the single coil sound is the most single coil sound I've heard from a humbucker.
Yeah.
By taking it down. And the other benefit, I think that the proximity of the magnet to the one that's still on, that's now single coil, is such that there's hardly any buzz.
Wow.
Okay.
So that's a cool mod.
Very cool.
That you can do. And on the other part of the concentric pot, I just have that top one that blends in the neck pickup, so I can get a telly.
Right.
So it's a pretty cool mod. I'm not going to say that Rich would love to do it for
Yeah,
you.
Rich. We're going to sell, right? We're bringing all kinds of guitars for you to these mods.
Some of the
about.
and the biggest thing, folks, is with mods and things like that. Do some research on it to make sure that when you're putting stuff in your guitar that it's going to work properly. And if you're not sure, find out good information. Go to a good shop that can lead you in the right direction. Because I can't tell you how many guitars came in with all this stuff, and I go, it's not going to work in your guitar, or we've got to rip out all this stuff, because if the guitar's got all this circuit boards and things like that in there, it makes it an absolute nightmare to install this stuff. And and when you take it to a shop, if they've got to look up, wiring diagrams for 3 hours, you're going to get charged for it. So it's just one of those things. Doing practical, there are some upgrades. Getting a Graphtec graphite nuts are great. always having
Tuners.
good
Tuners,
tuner
I was gonna say,
machines
the tuning
is a
machines.
big
Saddles,
thing.
bridge saddles.
And and I did a mod for Rick.
Yeah.
He bought a Silver Sky, and
PRS.
needed something with a little bit fatter, and then so we put a stacked humbucker in the DiMarzio chopper
yeah.
in the bridge position, and then also we put a coil tap on that as well.
we did.
So we got a little
That's
bit
nice.
of everything.
You get the floor sound on the rock tunes, but
Yeah.
you need the cluckier Strat sound. You still can get that with the coil.
Yeah.
So it's pretty nice.
So if you want to mod a guitar, go crazy, but be careful what you do, and don't overdo it on an inexpensive guitar. Because
Don't put Pirellis on a Chevette.
Exactly.
Unless they're used ball Pirellis from the same year the Chevette was made.
Exactly. And for you Floyd Rose, players, if you go to change your strings, please don't take all the strings off at once. Change them one at a time. And remember, if you change gauge, you got to also adjust your springs and things like that. So,
and you can take them all off at once, but you have to lower that bar and shove a wedge up underneath.
Otherwise
it just takes you longer to get it in tune and things like that. And, I've had Floyd Roses brought to me in a Ziploc bag. Here you go, and all the parts to it, and it ends up taking the technician a lot longer to mess with your guitar and get it ready.
A couple extra cups of coffee for that.
Yeah, exactly. And
That should be, that's a new line item on the service prices.
Yeah,
Floyd Rose in a bag, $75.
Yeah.
that's right.
We're going to put that on the chart here, Volume 11 music.
That's right.
Prince Albert in a can, Floyd Rose in a bag.
Right. Good old
That's it. Well, that's with this week's episode of Rock Talk. Hope you enjoyed it. Please hit that subscribe button. Keep following us, and we'll come up with great new content. And if you have any questions, we haven't got any audience questions lately.
Actually,
at all.
to this point,
So,
if you have questions about mods,
Yeah.
you can email Rich.
Yeah.
You can email me, markdunguitar
Yeah.
@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And I don't know what Rick's email is.
Yeah.
But
Rick Lawhorn. It is Rick and Roll.
Rick and Roll. Where?
Comcast.
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 Yeah. There you go.
That's just two shades removed from AOL.
I know.
Right, yeah.
Rick's a little.
I'm-
He's a little old school.
I'm old school, brother.
He's old school.
Yeah, I'm rocking the old school.
Keeps it real.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
This has been an episode of Volume 11 Rock Talk Podcast, brought to you by Volume 11 Music.